Bow. Hey people, long time no see. I've been off experimenting with short form stuff for a bit, but I figured now's the time to come back to YouTube with something longer and more in depth, I guess. So, welcome. This is part one of a three-part breakdown. Probably it's gonna be just two videos, I don't know yet, where I'll walk you through my character design process from the first spark of an idea to the final rendered concept. Now, this character wasn't just some personal challenge or portfolio sketch, it was actually done for a test assignment I got from a fairly well-known studio that approached me with the intent of possibly hiring me. And as we all know, these days test assignments are pretty much the norm. Even if you've got a full portfolio, they still want to see how you handle a real brief from scratch. And yeah, fair enough, sometimes a portfolio doesn't tell the full story, but at the same time, it's exhausting. However, I liked the tone of the project, and more importantly, the studio gave me a good amount of creative freedom. I was allowed to come up with my own backstory, visual twist, and most importantly, I was free to share the final result in my portfolio as long as I didn't mention the actual IP. So I thought, let's go for it. The brief was simple on the surface. Design a bold, memorable character for a shooter, make it modern, make it stylish, youthful, loud, maybe even a little ridiculous. And from a creative standpoint, the boundaries were wide open. I was encouraged to explore humor, push into absurdity, even go full-on stylized if it served the idea. So, as usual, before I dove into visual ideas, I gave myself some bullet points, a loose narrative skeleton to work from. None of this was required by the brief specifically, it's just how I prefer to work. So, let's rewind to the very beginning. The sketching starts with thumbnails, but not in the traditional sense. These thumbnails are a bit more refined than I normally do, and there's a reason for that. Usually when I work with client, the first pass is ultra loose. Quick silhouettes, minimal details, just enough to feel out direction. But this wasn't a regular brief. I only had one chance to show range, thinking, and style, so I decided to give each sketch a bit more structure and intention from the very start. And I didn't go in blindly either. Before putting pen to screen, I took time to write out a set of narrative bullet points, internal ideas, and soft backstory that could guide the design decisions later. So here's where I landed. This character is a hitman with a twist. He's a middle-aged, experienced, and always on the move. He basically lives in airports, he doesn't have a home, he takes jobs remotely via video calls, and yeah, that already gave me an idea. What if from the waist up, he looks sleek and professional, but from the waist down, he's just like full-on comfort mode, like sweatpants, socks, slippers, total chaos. Like business up top and vacation down below. And maybe he's got this weird love for cute things. Maybe he's into owls, maybe he collects ridiculous animal-themed merch. These little narrative quirks don't all have to make it into the final design, but they're useful. They keep me emotionally invested and they spark ideas. Also, I find it helpful to treat characters' traits and image as an art piece in itself. In the sense, you might even try to apply the same general rules of composition to it. For example, to make the character more interesting, I think it's nice to bring in more contrast in the traits. Like, big and menacing character can have some surprising soft side to him. Something that fights with the character's preconceived nature. These inconsistencies make the character more relatable and deep, I guess. And you can think of it in the same terms as you judge the composition or design. Like, 80-20 rule still applies. Want to make a creepy villain? Try making him 80% psychotic and 20% compassionate in his twisted way. Making an evil mind relatable, for example, try mixing 80% cold intelligence, composure, and control with 20% of neuroticism and clumsiness. I think you got the idea. For me, the best design comes in that sense not from just asking what would look cool, but rather who is this person and what makes him tick. Because once you know that, the design almost starts to draw itself. The idea is simple. Let the story guide the design, not the other way around. When I imagine a more complex personality, a lifestyle, a set of habits, it becomes way easier to avoid surface-level design language. The more personal and weird the character becomes in your head, and the less likely they are to feel generic on the page, I think. Now let's talk a bit about technique. As you'll notice, I switch freely between shape-based painting and line sketching. Each has its own strengths, and I use them depending on what stage of clarity the idea is in. When I'm working in shapes, it's usually because I want to stay loose and capture a high-level impression first. The values let me focus on silhouette, masses, and rhythm. It's especially useful when I'm not quite sure what the character is yet. I can block out stuff, test something, and exaggerate proportions without getting distracted by details too much. I can leave large areas completely flat, just as a single value silhouette, and rely on brain's ability to fill in blanks by recognizing familiar shapes. And they still will read well in the design. And in areas where I want to elaborate the design a bit better, where I want to draw the viewer's focus, I introduce additional value or values that helps me to describe the form a bit better. And since the brain has limited capacity to maintain focus, and expressing form with limited shapes demands some mind gymnastics, so to say, I tend to first block out the initial idea in just two values, technically even one, because you just paint and erase to reveal background color. And once I've formed some kind of readable sketch, I start a new one to maintain the creative momentum, since introducing more values and trying to define the form better might eat up my energy before I produce enough loose high-level ideas. Using values in that sense is a bit like writing a quick note to myself in a sketchbook. When using one or two values, it's fast, it captures the idea while it's fresh, and I can always come back later and finish it properly and define better by adding more values in places of focus. And this is what you'll see me doing with this set of thumbnails. I make a simple two-value sketch and jump to the next one, and only later come back to elaborate the design more. You can also see me jumping to line drawing occasionally. When a clearer image pops into my head, I may go straight into line. For me, line allows to jump straight into more nuanced details like facial expression, articulation of pose, and hand gestures. When in values, it takes more time and brain power to establish the same read of more nuanced features, especially with limited values. So with shapes, I can explore more and faster. With line, I can be more precise while spending less energy, I guess. This flexibility helps a lot in the early stages of design, especially when I'm not just executing, but looking for something. The thing that I find problematic with line from time to time, and this is something that concerns specifically my workflow, so you might not have the same problem. With line, I tend to build the characters more structurally. If I don't have a clear idea in my head, I start with the mannequin to find the pose, then I put on clothes, and that might result in somewhat samey looking set of designs, where I put too much emphasis on the pose and the clothing repeats the contours of body too much. It's kind of a force of habit that I fall into very quickly when I slip into comfort of just putting lines on canvas. Like when you mindlessly noodling in a sketchbook making another random character sketch. Drawing in values snaps me out of it immediately since every brush mark demands careful and thoughtful planning. And you will see how I get rid of a few designs that emerged under the influence of line drawing zen I fell into again. So one of the challenges of producing thumbnails and sketches is maintaining this optimal level of awareness and focus. For instance, in later stages of design, especially rendering, I might even turn on audiobook in the background and it won't affect my productivity too much. But still, it disperses the focus somewhat. While when I do thumbnails or sketches, it's either music or nothing. And in case of music, it's better to be something not too distracting or something with proper atmosphere. Normally, when working with client, I'd send raw, blocky thumbnails first, just silhouettes and poses to nail direction. Then cleaned up line pass to discuss details. Then maybe move into render. But for this test, as I said earlier, I had only one shot, so I wanted every sketch to carry a bit more weight, to show not just design ideas, but personality, humor, variation. That's why even these thumbnails are more refined than I'd usually do. I limited the values to just a few tones per character, but tried to use them wisely to suggest emotion, attitude, mood. In places I wanted focus, I'd define the form more clearly. In less important areas, I'd keep things vague, because that's what thumbnails are great for. They let you be selective with your focus. Suggest just enough to spark the viewer's imagination without locking anything down too soon. I didn't go in with a locked concept, so you'll see men, women, bots wearing suits, animals wearing suits, bots wearing animals. Eventually I started to push into more stylized territory. Some designs got absurd, some comical, the project allowed for that. That expansion happened naturally. The more sketches I did, the more I started following loose ideas and impulses. What if the character wasn't human? What if the suit had animal traits? These are the kind of questions that show up only when you give yourself room to play. To be honest, I feel like for quite a while I underappreciated the potential of a thumbnail face, because it definitely has layers. When approached methodically and with a proper state of mind, you just tend to dissolve into this flow state where you become really immersed into the theme and essence of what the character might be. Also, keep in mind that while many of these designs look very simplistic, they're like 90% of what the character will eventually look like. Some minor things will change, sure, but for the most part, here it is. And when you allow yourself to explore more, you find some cool little ideas that will make it into the final design. Although you wouldn't come up with these if it wasn't for this time you spent getting under the character's skin. This is another point where I think going with AI pipeline, you kind of compromise creative decision making. For example, at first I entertained the idea of character drinking coffee, because it felt like a natural choice for someone who have to be patient yet remain focused. But only when I moved to bots territory and was thinking of how to tie together bots and coffee, because bots drinking coffee felt kinda dumb. I first imagined a bot assassin with a built-in coffee maker, And then I arrived at an idea that the character will have a compact coffee machine as part of his tactical gear, built in his armor dispenser, for example. I doubt I would have come up with an idea like that just playing around with props in an image generator. So, by the time I finished with the sketching, I knew that some of the later thumbnails were maybe a bit too out there. And considering that I couldn't get sketch round feedback, I decided to go with one of the more tame yet probably secure designs. One of the first ones that I felt strongly about. Yet by going through the whole ordeal of making a spectrum of characters, I came up with some ideas that I really wanted to integrate in the final design. Like going with mechanical hands and some other little features. And that's when a more defined character began to form. So, this guy, a professional hitman who works remote, someone who lives out of airport lounges, constantly traveling, always online. He takes jobs through video calls, he works across time zones, he sleeps in terminals. Why? Because he's still paying off his 2040 student loans. I don't know, maybe he went to art school and then reality happened. Now he's grinding contracts to maybe, just maybe, one day afford to work in his actual profession. To stay functioning, he's powered almost entirely by caffeine. He's a tactical coffee addict. His ammo crate doubles as a mobile espresso bar. His only luxury is the first sip of hot coffee before a mission and a guilty pleasure of binge-watching tear-squeezing doramas in between the flights. He's divorced, jaded, and has a soft spot for owls, maybe cats, maybe both. But again, this wasn't the first idea. That's why try not to skip this phase. Don't rush to finish. Stay messy, be playful. You're not just drawing, you're discovering. And this is probably the least punishing phase of work to do that. Next time, we'll take this character and start refining and exploring him more. But for now, I hope this was helpful. If you liked this video, drop a comment. Let me know what resonated with you. See you in the next one.